What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another gaming session, and today we are going to do my top 10 games of 2023. This was a list that was extremely difficult to put together in a year that was one of the best years in gaming history, and I had to include a top 5 list of games that just didn't make it, sadly, in the top 10, but I wanted to make sure that I did mention them because they were fantastic games. And so let's just get right into it with my number 15, Hogwarts Legacy.
The Legacy of Hogwarts.
So, Hogwarts Legacy, this is not to include any of the controversy. This is just simply about the game. The game has an extremely well-built foundation for a potential sequel, and quite honestly, it was just really, really cool to kind of create my own witch or wizard, whatever you want to do, and go into Hogwarts Castle, and the fully realized version of Hogwarts Castle, and in a story that was pretty bland. I think the story is probably the thing that takes the back seat the most. But there's just so much that you can do in this game, to the point where you even have your own sanctuary where you can have animals, and you can build your own room, and you kind of customize your wands, all this incredibly cool stuff that as a kid growing up on Harry Potter, I couldn't, this would be my wildest dreams come true if I played this game as a kid, I'll just say that. So moving on to number 14 spot, I have Dredge. And Dredge is a game that honestly, it took me by surprise this year. I did not know what to expect with it. Dredge is definitely one of the best indie titles this year. There is one other indie game that I did like a little bit more. And that'll come later on, but honestly, if you haven't played Dredge, it's worth checking out. It's a H.P. Lovecraft inspired game that has you on a boat and going from port to port, essentially trying to unlock different mysteries throughout the game. And if you stay out too long and you don't have a light on, essentially Cthulhu's gonna get you. That's kind of the basis. But I love this game a lot, and it's one that I definitely plan to revisit in 2024. That's for sure. Number 13, I have Final Fantasy 16. And for me, I did not play Final Fantasy 16 when it came out initially. I actually just played it probably a couple of months ago. I started it. And it's one of those games that I have mixed feelings on. I really, really like Final Fantasy 7 Remake quite a bit. And that's kind of the same combat system that they used in Final Fantasy 16. Or almost identical, I guess. But I am more traditional. I do like JRPGs, but I do prefer kind of like the classic RPGs as well, like turn-based style, or even like Final Fantasy 12 has a really cool like combat system. But Final Fantasy 16 has an incredible story, amazing music, great cast of characters, and it'll take you a while to beat the game itself, but overall, I had a lot of fun with it in the combat, and just kind of the large kind of moments in this game, especially with some of the boss battles, is something to behold, and it's definitely on my games that I enjoyed this year, but it just didn't make the top 10. Coming in number 12, this one's going to be controversial to say the least, but I do have my reasons for it. Baldur's Gate 3. So, with having Baldur's Gate 3 at the number 12 spot, for me, the reason being is because I just didn't have a lot of time to put into this game. Essentially, games that you might want to play, you never just can get around to them because Baldur's Gate 3 takes so much of your time. I appreciate what the game is. I appreciate what they did with the RPG and kind of like game itself, the genre, like involving it. It's a fantastic game. Don't get me wrong. It's just not one of my games that I personally enjoyed the most in 2023. But if you did, fantastic. It's just not in my top 10. Alright, moving on to number 11, and this might be a controversial pick because it's the last game I had, Baldur's Gate 3. Number 11 is Dead Island 2. I personally, when Dead Island, the first game came out, I was obsessed with it. I played it quite a bit. I probably beat the game through 3 times, and I remember playing Riptide and beating that a couple of times, and I just been waiting for a sequel for a long time. And honestly, Dead Island 2 takes what made Dead Island 1 so much fun for me, and it just completely builds on that. And the environments, the schlocky horror type elements of this game, the comedy, just everything feels like they really did a thorough, they really did a great job of making this game all that much grandioso or larger than the first game. And I truly appreciate it, although I did have issues with the customization, but fantastic game regardless. Alright, so now we are heading into my top 10. And number 10, I have Under the Waves.
I promise.
And Under the Waves is a game that a lot of people probably haven't heard of, or if you did, I'm sure you enjoyed it just as much as I did. This game is very chill. So Under the Waves was published by Quantic Dream, and Quantic Dream are the same people that did Detroit Become Human, of course, Heavy Rain. They've done a lot of fantastic games that have some of the best stories ever, and Under the Waves is no exception to that. It may not be developed by them, but it certainly fits their style and what they kind of place emphasis on the most, which is story. And Under the Waves is absolutely fantastic, and I can't recommend it enough. Alright, so moving on to my number 9 spot, and number 9 is Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty. The biggest reason why I don't have Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty higher is because I've just been playing so much Cyberpunk, and before Phantom Liberty even came out, and I've been playing it since day one, because I just was one of the lucky few that basically didn't have issues when the game launched. So personally, Cyberpunk 2077 is one of my favorite games of all time, and Phantom Liberty is an amazing expansion, but it is an expansion. It's even though it has its own story and you can separate it, I just feel like because I've been kind of cyberpunked out a little bit, I think a break from Phantom Liberty coming out, I kind of needed a rest from it. Phantom Liberty is one of the best expansions that CD Projekt Red has ever done, and if you haven't played it, definitely you need to play Phantom Liberty. Alright, moving on to my number 8 spot, and Spider-Man 2. So this is a game that I kind of went back and forth on where I wanted to place it in terms of my top 10. And the biggest reason for me is I asked myself, did this game kind of stand out to you compared to the other ones, compared to Miles Morales, compared to the first Spider-Man game? And personally for me, while the game, it's cool that I can play as Venom and Mary Jane, and you have the combination of Miles Morales and Peter Parker. Miles doesn't have the strongest story, and Peter Parker feels like the strongest story was in the first game. So this kind of, I feel like was the next game is going to be Venom, and then we're going to have Spider-Man 3. But I feel like for me, Spider-Man 2 just doesn't live up to the first 2 games. Honestly, I think Miles Morales is my personal favorite game, and then followed by Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. So while it's an incredible game, it just, to me, it's at number 8. There were 7 games above Spider-Man 2 that I felt I just enjoyed more this year. Okay, so number 7, we are going into the remake territory with Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 Remake is one of the best remakes I've ever played. I appreciate what Capcom has done, not only with the the Resident Evil 4 remake, but Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Nemesis was an expansion. Essentially, they reused everything, even back when it came out on the PlayStation, so I wasn't expecting much from Nemesis. However, what they did with 4 was absolutely incredible, and the game is definitely different enough that it makes me feel like I'm playing one of my favorite Resident Evil games of all time, but also one of my favorite action-adventure games of all time, and once again, or for the first time, which is absolutely refreshing. Whereas the Dead Space remake, I think it's just the best version of the game that I enjoyed the most, or one of my favorite horror games of all time. So this feels different enough to me to warrant the spot at number 7, and it's a game that I really personally enjoyed in 2023. Number 6, this is going to be a game that some people are not going to have even in their top 15, top 10, whatever it might be. But number 6, I have RoboCop Rogue City.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
When I played the demo, I initially was kind of suspecting this game wasn't going to be fairly good. And then something magical happened. It turned out to be way better than I even thought possible. So while I did play Terminator Resistance, which is the developer Teon are the ones who made that game, RoboCop Rogue City feels like they even went further with this, and these really feel like passion projects. I'm not even the biggest RoboCop fan, but I found myself just really enjoying this game because of the atmosphere. It does feel like an 80s game. It does. The Peter Weller was brought back to voice RoboCop, which is really dope. The missions, the side missions, the game is pretty large in scope. If you just kind of explore and do the other things that are also in the game that kind of impact the story and kind of make you feel even more invested in it overall. But RoboCop Rogue City is one of my favorite games of 2023. I absolutely love this game, and if you're a RoboCop fan, you'll definitely love it. If you're not a RoboCop fan and you just like really good first-person shooters, you'll definitely love it as well. And RoboCop Rogue City is definitely deserving at number 6. All right, moving on to number 5, and we're getting to the top 5 here. Listen, I've been playing fighting games since I've been a kid in the 90s and growing up at arcades and playing Tekken and Tekken 2 and even like Street Fighter or even the original Mortal Kombat arcades, bowling alleys, and I have such huge nostalgia for fighting games in general, but it's specifically Mortal Kombat and Tekken and Street Fighter. And honestly, while I like Street Fighter 6, I'm not the biggest fan of the whole open world and create your own character. I would have preferred like a full story like we're going to be getting in Tekken and like we did get with Mortal Kombat 1. Mortal Kombat 1, to me, it perfects the actual fighting and makes it feel so much smoother. I absolutely love how every character feels in this game and how it feels like you can kind of have a certain skill set with any of the characters. I don't like Megan Fox, okay? I don't like the fact she was included because I don't think her character kind of sucks anyway, and her voice acting's terrible.
Serena's right. Because of Quan Chi's magic, my realm's people are no longer poisoned by sunlight. We've finally escaped the shadows.
Pushing that aside, Mortal Kombat 1's story, which can take, I think, anywhere between like 8 to 10 hours, some people have said, depending how good you are, depending on the difficulty that you have it set at. And the story is fantastic, and I thoroughly enjoyed Mortal Kombat 1. And when I played it initially, and then I got to play it with Rocky, and I kind of played a little bit more on my own, this was one of my favorite games of 2023, and I can't suggest it enough. All right, going on to number 4, and number 4 is going to be Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is one of my favorite games of 2023. I am a huge like music game fan, so like from Parappa the Rapper all the way back on the PlayStation when I was growing up as a kid, to of course Guitar Hero and Rock Band. And Hi-Fi Rush takes an anime and mixes it with music, and has you use a control essentially to control like the rhythm of the game, and it just is incredibly well designed. The story is extremely well done. I hope there's a sequel. I hope there's maybe an anime. I'm really interested in the world, but Hi-Fi Rush is absolutely one of my favorite games of 2023, and this one you can get on Xbox Game Pass for free as well. So definitely worth checking out, and I can't say it enough. I love this game. It's fantastic. All right, now we're going on to the top 3. And number 3, I have Super Mario Wonder. As somebody who has grown up on Super Mario, like a lot of people, a lot of kids, basically Super Mario, for me, the first game I remember playing was the very first Super Mario on the NES when I was a kid. And I've been infatuated and love with Mario ever since that day. And not in a way, just I love Mario. I love Mario. But anyway, so Super Mario Wonder did something that I didn't think was possible. They made Mario feel new again. This is something that I haven't felt probably since Super Mario Galaxy was probably the last game to kind of do this. Before that was Super Mario 64. There's kind of generations of Mario, and each one kind of has their own thing, but for the first time in a long time, I haven't felt like Mario's fully new until Super Mario Wonder, and this is one of the best Mario games I've ever played. It's one of the best Mario games in all of Mario game history. It's incredible, and if you're like into trippy, psychedelic type of game experiences, Super Mario Wonder is it, and you can play it with your friends, and it's easily one of the best games of 2023 for me. All right, so we're moving on to the top 2. In my top 2 games, at number 2, I have Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So this is another game similar to Cyberpunk where I didn't have any issues when it launched. So I was able to get to thoroughly enjoy it without any general animosity towards the game because of how crappy it was ported. So Star Wars Jedi Survivor has to me, this is the Uncharted 2 of the Star Wars games. This is like Cal Kestis is, and the Cameron Moynihan is an amazing actor, and I absolutely love it. Star Wars Jedi Survivor has these big set pieces and these great moments in the game that just, it feels like Uncharted 2, where it's just nonstop action, and you just those moments that you get to breathe a little bit are just like really, really great, and the kind of the open world aesthetic to it, like similar a little bit to the first one, is really great, and just I feel like everything was built upon when the original game. I feel like everything was just kind of built on upon that, and they just took it to another level, and I cannot wait for the third installment of this trilogy. And Star Wars Jedi Survivor is easily one of my favorite games of all time, and it's one of my favorite games of 2023. Number 1. So number 1 is going to be Alan Wake 2. Since I fell down this rabbit hole. I may be a little bit biased in my why I believe Alan Wake 2 is the best game in 2023 for me personally, and it all stems from the fact that Alan Wake, when it came on the Xbox 360, it was one of the first games that I got on the 360, and ever since I played that game, I've just been waiting for a sequel, and when we finally got it, I didn't know it was going to live up to the hype. It took it to a whole nother level. the Alan Wake 2 has such an incredible story. There is the moment that you kind of saw at the Game Awards, the performance they were putting on. Basically, in the game, there's like this whole entire musical set piece, and going back and forth, and the puzzle elements, and just kind of how the game is designed, and having you to really think about, okay, what part of, like, do I go to this part of time, or how do I shift the world to kind of continue on my path, and just a lot of different things. And then the whole detective board is done perfectly. It's taking like the idea of the Sherlock Holmes games and just taking that to a different level that just feels more like easier to kind of work with. That it doesn't feel like it just feels. It feels greater. It feels like this Alan Wake 2 is one of the best games I've ever played. And RIP to James McCaffrey. You were one of my childhood voices, somebody who I grew up with. And while they don't just outright say it in Alan Wake 2, again, all like Control, Alan Wake, and Max Payne are all connected to each other. Even Quantum Break is connected in this universe, and so it's just kind of all different cast of characters, but they're still the same characters. It's just, James McCaffrey plays essentially Max Payne in Alan Wake 2, and this is his last game. He sadly passed away, and honestly, it's to lose him and to have an experience like I did with Alan Wake 2. This was one of my favorite games, and I can't express how much I really enjoyed it, and I really, really recommend you play it if you haven't gotten a chance to. But those are my top 10 and my supplemental top 5 picks. And honestly, this year in gaming has been absolutely incredible. 2023, without question, is one of the best years in video game history, and I can't wait to see what happens in 2024. But let us know what you think of my top 10 picks or my supplemental top 5. Let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like. Don't forget to hit subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. And thank you for chilling with me, and we'll see you all in next gaming session.
I spaced out of my head to the depths of the universe. It's a spell or a chance just to open up a newer curse. If I swim too far, then my head goes under. If we take it as it is, then there ain't no wonder. It's hard to imagine that just one